Well, here we are back at the battery workbench again. So I brought the batteries home off the boat today based on some help from HumSync. I'd sent them a note saying I'm still struggling with understanding how these batteries are supposed to work. One of them, this one here, the number 2 battery, never would charge to 100%. And then when I put them on the boat, this one kind of went, I want to say, lazy, and it wasn't contributing anything much to the power load. That one seemed to be doing all the work, and yet it wouldn't get to 100%. So they suggested that I charge them independently again, which I have done this already, but they said independently, and jack up the charger to 14.6 volts and 5 amps and try to hold it there for a couple hours. So I brought them home today. I hooked one of them up to the charger. I set the voltage for the absorption profile at 14.6 and limited the current to 5 amps. Now it doesn't push 5 amp. It didn't really push 5 amps. It didn't seem like to me, but it was topped off at 100%. Right now that battery is reading 13.79 volts. The discharge switch is on. The charge switch is off, and it turned itself off when it got to 100%. Let's see what the other battery shows. So this is the one I just finished charging. Maybe that's why its voltage is so high. It hasn't rested really. But this one, I had trouble getting this one to 100% before, so maybe now I've got it there. Again, the voltage seems a bit high. Probably should let it rest, but I guess I won't for now, at least not this time around. So now I've paralleled them, and I have hooked up an inverter, and I'm going to do kind of a test like I did before. What I really want to know is do both batteries contribute to the power load? So it's a 100-watt light bulb. That's the only thing it's on, and this one's giving up 100 watts, 107 watts. So I'm going to say that this battery, the one that usually seems to do the work, is the one that's still doing most of the work. It might be interesting if I switch the negative and positives around. I don't know if that would make any difference. I guess it's worth a try. But if we look at what I've dubbed the lazy battery, he's not showing any discharge. Now, maybe because this one's at 13.79 and the other one's at 14 something, maybe that's why. I guess we'll let it run. This one's down to 13.8 already, and that 14 was probably just high because it had just come off the charger maybe. I'm going to let that run for a while and keep an eye on batteries. When this one gets down to the same voltage as the other one, then I'd be curious to see if all of a sudden they both start contributing. Again, it's a 100-watt light bulb, so we should see roughly 50-50 if they're doing what I think they should do. Mr. Lazy Battery, though, he's now at 13.79, and the other one's dropped below that. At least with the load on it, it's below that. Yeah. So now why isn't the other battery taking some of that load? I don't know. So I'm on the boat. Batteries were on the charger since yesterday, and just checking them real quick. So Battery 1 is at 13.47 volts. It does show 100% state of charge, but 13.47. And if we look at the other battery, it's at 13.48 and 99%. So very close, I think. I'm not going to sweat that little bit. 1/100th of a volt. So I still think things are looking good with the batteries. So I'm on the boat. Batteries were on the charger since yesterday, and just checking them real quick. So battery 1 is at 13.47 volts. It does show 100% state of charge, but 13.47. And if we look at the other battery, it's at 13.48 and 99%. So very close, I think. I'm not going to sweat that little bit. 1/100th of a volt. So I still think things are looking good with the batteries. Well, hey, it's Captain Greg. I'm out sailing today, and just wanted to give a quick update, kind of a final update on my HumpSync 100 amp hour smart lithium batteries. So if you've watched any of the previous episodes, you know I replaced a couple of 6-volt flooded lead acid golf cart batteries, which provided me a 215 amp hour bank at 12 volts. But they were 5 years old, not holding much of a charge these days. And so I bought a couple of 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries on Amazon during Prime Day, and these were manufactured by a company called HumpSync. They're smart batteries, so they have a Bluetooth access to the BMS for monitoring. So I was kind of excited about them. I did charge them up at home before I put them on the boat, and then when I got them to the boat, I put them in parallel to give myself a 200 amp hour bank. I struggled for the first week or two with getting the batteries equalized, and by that I mean when they were in parallel, they didn't have the same voltage. They didn't share the load equally. In fact, at times they didn't share it at all. One battery did the work, and the other battery didn't do anything. So I was a bit frustrated, to say the least, with the setup. I reached out to HumpSync's customer service several times. They responded each and every time. They offered to take the batteries back, which I didn't want to do, honestly. What I really thought about was trying to get a 200 amp hour single battery, but I wanted it to be a smart battery, and I don't think HumpSync has one. They have a 200 amp hour battery, but I don't think it's a smart battery. And so, in addition to kind of checking into that with them, they also gave me some advice on, what to do. And primarily what they suggested was to independently and individually charge each battery at 14.6 volts and limit the current to 5 amps. But it was important to get them to 14.6 volts. Normally, I think my charger does the absorption cycle at 14.2 volts. So I took the batteries off the boat, I took them home, put them on my workbench at home, used my Victron charger. Honestly, was kind of not too sure that this was going to do much good, because what I saw was once the batteries are charged, they flip off their charging switch, and so I really wasn't sure what it was going to do. But I did exactly what they suggested. I left both, independently and individually, charge the batteries using a custom charge profile to get 14.6 volts and 5 amps of current. Now, I will say that there was very little current flowing during that time. I limited it to 5, but I couldn't force it to do 5. But I did it for a couple hours, then I changed over to the other battery. I did it for a few hours, as they suggested. I then, in my workshop, I paralleled the batteries and I put a light load on them, just a 100-watt light bulb on my inverter. And I was, very happy and excited to see that both batteries were discharging at that point. And their state of charge and their voltage was just about identical, if not identical. And that's what I was really hoping to see all along. So that evening I put the batteries paralleled, left them paralleled, but put them back on a charger overnight. Just my regular lithium charging profile. And in the morning they were both at 100% state of charge, and they had the same voltage. And so I felt pretty good about that. I carried the boats to the battery that next morning, put them on the boat in parallel again, and hooked up my house load. Now my house load, stays on all the time. I have a fridge and stuff that I run. And so that I left the batteries running the fridge, and I just left them on overnight. Came in the next day and was very happy to see that the batteries were both, essentially identical in their voltage and their state of charge. They were on a charger, mind you. I'm watching a speedboat come ripping across here and making sure he doesn't hit me. I think that is a racing boat there. Anyway, yeah, he's a ripping. Anyway, so the long and short of it is, after equalizing the batteries using HumSync's suggestions, which included juicing them up a bit past what my charging profile normally would call for, which is 14.2 volts. They wanted 14.6 for 3 hours. So I did that. And I'm just really, really happy to say that ever since I did that, the batteries seem to work in parallel with one another, meaning they both contribute to the load. Their voltage and state of charge stays almost identical, if not identical. And both batteries are producing power to run the house. So I'm really, really excited about it. I'm going to consider this project done now and be very happy that the HumSync batteries came through as I had hoped. But my only complaint maybe with HumSync right now is that I thought that their app would allow me to see individual cell voltages on their batteries, but they do not. It allows me to see the overall voltage of the battery, the pack, if you will, but not individual cells in the battery. So they said that they're working on, an upgrade to the app. I hope that comes through and we can actually see the actual cell voltage. Right now, I cannot. But they seem to be holding very strong, so I'm going to assume each cell is, at or above its normal voltage. 3.3, I think, it's supposed to be. So anyway, this kind of wraps up the whole saga with HumSync and their 100 amp hour smart batteries operating in parallel as my house bank. Thumbs up. Where's my thumb? Thumbs up to HumSync. They're working great.